Good morning. We're here on the first Monday of May, May 4th. So we got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things that are happening. Coronavirus. Florida Department of Health in Escambia County, there are now 593 positive cases of COVID-19 in Escambia County. We encourage everyone to continue to follow CDC guidelines and take preventative actions, even when you feel perfectly healthy. Executive Order 2111 and 2112. These executive orders go into effect today from Governor DeSantis. These executive orders will include important details that impact business operations in the state of Florida. We encourage all business owners and impacted individuals to review the executive orders to ensure you are in compliance with any guidelines pertaining to your respective industries. Executive Order 2112 includes phase one of the governor's reopening plan, which allows restaurants to offer outdoor seating with appropriate social distancing, along with indoor seating at 25% capacity. It also allows retail to reopen at 25% capacity. We encourage everyone to continue practicing social distancing, wearing masks in public settings, and keep taking actions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Continued advocacy to the state. I just wanted to take a moment to mention a few of the things that we are doing at the City of Pensacola and advocating for Pensacola at the state level through this COVID-19 pandemic. In March 16th, I sent a letter to the governor requesting a small business claims pool for impacted businesses. Much which came out of this thing is looking some of those personal payroll loans, similar to what that came out. Then on March 26th, we sent a letter to the governor requesting that they require those individuals coming into Florida from Louisiana to self-isolate for 14 days. If you saw the governor's press conference on Friday when he was here in Pensacola, he credited much of moving that forward and trying to stem the tide of what we've seen, cases coming from our west, and certainly credited many, not only myself, but many local officials in Northwest Florida that asked for that action to be taken. And today we still remain in contact with the state regarding unemployment websites. We continue to advocate on your behalf, trying to find ways that we can help and communicate the challenges that you're having. And we continue to do that, and we will continue to do that. And then finally, I sent a letter on May 1st to the governor advocating for personal services such as hairdressers, barbers, and nail salons to begin to reopen May 11th if there was a safe protocol for them to do so. I think I saw over the weekend the governor was in Orlando meeting with personal services groups, and I understand that he may be doing something today as well. So I appreciate him looking into that. And I know many of you that have businesses out there want to find a way small businesses to open, but we certainly want to make sure the right protocols are in place and that we can do it safely. And I thought the conversation that happened on Saturday was a very good conversation. City Fire Marshal assistance for businesses to promote Pensacola's recovery and community risk reduction. The Pensacola Fire Department Fire Marshal's Office is available to assist business owners with calculating their new 25% maximum occupant capacity. This service is provided as a courtesy of the City of Pensacola to the business community. You're certainly welcome to contact the fire services, and if there's a specific number or online, I see Chief Craner is here, and she, I know, would be able to communicate that at some point today if we need to do that. Executive Order 2112 allows individual businesses to reopen in Florida with limited occupancy, as we discussed. The order limits it to 25% in retail and restaurants. Most restaurants have an occupancy load posted. Approved occupancy is 50% of 50 persons or greater. However, most retailers do not have an occupancy load posted and may not know what that 25% is. For information or to schedule an appointment with the Pensacola Fire Department and the Fire Marshal, please call the Pensacola Fire Department at 436-5200 or email fireprevention@cityofpensacola.com. So if you have a business and you'd like to understand calculations, which you need to do, please call 536-5200 for the fire marshal, or go to fireprevention@cityofpensacola.com, and they will work with you to get you the right amount of occupants for your space. Park update. All City Pensacola Park playgrounds, city basketball courts, Roger Scott Tennis Center, and city tennis courts are now open to the public. Drinking fountains at city parks remain turned off, and public restrooms at city parks remain closed at this time. The city splash pad at Plaza de Luna also remains closed at this time. I do imagine over time we will begin to look to reopen these things as we go through phase one, but at this point those services are closed. But the good news is certainly the playgrounds, tennis, and basketball courts are all open, and I know I saw people in my neighborhood up at Dunwoody Park playing on the playground, so I know that they're at least getting used, so that's good for children in the area. Park visitors should adhere to the following guidelines when using shared equipment. Do not gather in groups of more than 10. Maintain physical distance of at least 6 feet between yourself and others who do not live in your household. It is recommended that individuals wipe down any shared surfaces such as playground equipment, fitness equipment, or benches before and after each use. The City of Pensacola Parks and Recreation Department is not disinfecting these frequently touched surfaces. Follow all CDC guidelines to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Also, there's a stormwater project on Bayou Tahar. Construction of the Bayou Tahar, Perry, Blunt, and Avery outfalls at Bayou Tahar Stormwater Treatment Enhancement Project will begin Tuesday, May 5th. The goal of this project is to provide underground stormwater treatment units for these 3 sub-basins that currently discharge untreated stormwater runoff into Bayou Tahar. Construction is expected to take approximately 15 weeks to complete, weather permitting. Residents will be provided access to their property throughout construction, and every effort will be made to minimize impact to residential areas during construction. Also, this week, it is National Travel and Tourism Week, and I want to take a moment to recognize Visit Pensacola for leading in a virtual celebration in honor of National Travel and Tourism Week for May 3rd through the 9th, which is an annual celebration. It celebrates the contributions and accomplishments of the U.S. travel industry, and in particular that here within Pensacola and the state of Florida. Tourism is a vital part to both the state of Florida and the city of Pensacola, and we are incredibly grateful for our travel and tourism industry here in Pensacola, and we know that you've taken a hard hit from COVID-19. We encourage everyone to come together and show their support for the travel and tourism industry during these challenging times, even if you have to show your support virtually. Visit Pensacola has done several ways that you can participate in celebrating National Travel and Tourism Week and showing your support for our local tourism partners. Learn more at visitpensacola.org. Finally, I want to talk about something we've discussed in looking at what happens and as people come back and try to figure out how retail, how restaurants move forward, both within the guidelines that the governor has provided, but also as we look forward to see just how do we look at continuing to deal with an ever-changing, I guess, dynamic that happens in business. We certainly understand that many people, for a variety of reasons, may have changed their buying patterns, their eating restaurant patterns, their shopping patterns. However, we certainly want to find ways to continue. We have a very vibrant retail and restaurant economy, and especially in downtown Pensacola, and we would love to find a way to work to improve these possibilities. The city has been working with the Downtown Improvement Board for a temporary closure of Palafox Street and make it pedestrian only to provide restaurants and retail more space to safely provide outdoor dining and shopping. Our goal and idea was that both restaurants and retail could use the sidewalk, and then we'd have people walk in the street on either side where you'd walk the same direction up that you would be with cars, and that way you wouldn't have to walk by people that were eating at their tables. We have been talking about this, and I certainly am understanding that there are a lot of retailers who don't necessarily looked at, or can, for the where their product is, necessarily take advantage, but do need opportunity to have access to cars. So we're looking at maybe limiting this to weekends, and certainly maybe like a Friday night and a Saturday night from 4 to 9, both Friday and Saturday, and then kind of an all-day Sunday. Leave it up through Sunday for lunch and for dinner. So as we move forward, we're still working out logistics. We'll be continuing to do that this week, but we are sort of looking at a Friday, Saturday, Sunday launch of this, where it will be Friday 4 to 9, Saturday 4 to 9, and then pick back up Sunday and go from 10 in the morning till 9 that night, at which time it will be removed and start the next week. We are still working with logistics and hope to have this worked out by the end of the week. We are hoping that this will help support our local businesses and that they can begin to recover from the COVID-19 impacts. Finally, at this point, the City of Pensacola, while we are open and operating and all our departments are working, we will not be bringing things back to the public at this particular time. We feel like anything that we do that creates connections increases risk. And at this time, we feel it is irresponsible for the government to take on additional risk when we have businesses, especially those service businesses, personal service businesses that are still closed. Our goal is to get them open, get them back to work. And we at the City of Pensacola don't feel like we should be doing anything to increase risk that would be the detriment of those companies getting back to work and back to earning for their families. So at this point, we still will be doing everything that we're doing virtually, and we ask that you to comply with us. At this point, we do not have any community centers open or any other programming or scheduling with our parks and recreation. And we ask, I know that many of you have different things going on that you'd like to do more of, but at this particular time, we're going to ask see if we could wait and see if we can get our businesses back up and running. We continue to work through that and make every effort that we can, concerted effort to make sure that they're able to get back to work. When they're back at work and their businesses are running and we're safe, the City of Pensacola will come back and we'll open up all of our services as well as we go into phase 2. So, from our standpoint, that's where we are. We're continuing to work at this point, just as we have been trying to minimize our personnel in City Hall and other buildings. We may be slightly coming back, slightly increased on percentage of people in City Hall and other buildings, but we will not be opening to the public at this particular time until we can get all of our businesses back up and running. That's all from my standpoint. We will continue to listen to questions you have, and feel free to again communicate with Casey as she's asked. If you have challenges, I very appreciate Dave. I know Dave Dunwoody told me last week he had some challenges. So if you can also, I guess, Casey, if you could get text or other stuff that to be able to know what we could get for you. Casey, what do we have? What are our questions?
First question is from John Singley. With some of the city's revenue streams reduced by the economic downturn, do you think bond ratings may be affected?
Again, I don't think anything's going to be that drastic that ends up hurting us. Our biggest challenge will be the airport and the bonds that are associated with the airport. I think most of our other services at this particular time should not be impacted. That doesn't mean we won't see challenges and we don't see a challenge for next year's budget. But I do expect most all of our departments to be able to continue to maintain, and that we haven't been as severely impacted. But at the airport, there's no doubt that we've been severely impacted and will be for some time, which is one of the reasons we're also obtaining funding through the CARES Act. And we hope to be able to use that to continue to do all the things that we traditionally have done to keep our bonds paid and everything else. So, Dan and his team are doing a good job out there working through this. It's been challenging, but I do think we can come through this, and we're looking at what we're going to do next year. Now, it may mean next year we have to scale back on some things we had hoped to do as a budget, but that's what we're working through right now.
And this is from Andrew McKay. I know you already touched on this, but he said, what is your plan for Palafox?
Yeah, Andrew. I mean, again, our goal is, and I think it's important to realize that that people. I don't think people will shop post COVID that they did pre-COVID. I think obviously some things will stay the same, but I think people are going to be cautious to come back. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I know the mall opens today. We'll see what's going on, and I'm very sensitive to. I know there are some retailers that are still doing pickup, drop-off services stuff, which is why they still need cars on Palafox, which is why we really would look at doing something more like the 4 o'clock time frame. The 4 o'clock time frame allows us to make a swap over, get everything in place so that restaurants and retail that wishes to stay open later can have their stuff in line for people to be able to come down there. From our standpoint, we'd love to have people here. This is not a gallery night. We're not bringing out people from outside the area in. This is only for people who have either lease establishments or real property ownership on Palafox to be able to utilize. We do think this will throw off, though, to some of the other side streets, things that are happening on Jefferson as well as Balin, Government. Again, we think there will be some spinoff of this to other businesses that are here and even south of Palafox, south of Main on Palafox, even though that area won't be one of the ones blocked off. But our goal is certainly to try to create a customer experience. You can certainly purchase a lot of things online, and that's one way to do it. But we think there's still, and I think some of it showed this weekend. I think if you looked at what happened at Pensacola Beach, there is a desire to connection, to connect, to do other things. And I think as long as we can do those things and do it socially responsible, we can find a way to make it work. Again, we would end all these things at 9 o'clock. This is not a gallery night situation. We would be ending them at 9 o'clock. But our goal and objective would be to allow businesses to be able to utilize street, have people come down here. There should be at this point no issue with parking. One way or the other, get people here. They're able to walk in the street, visit these places, be able to dine outside, be able to enjoy really probably one of the last months we have with good, reasonable weather. Not that we don't have good weather in June and July, it's just really hot. But it's been comfortable so far in May. We'd love to find a way to help these businesses. And I mean, this is really about trying to help them through this transition as we go from phase 1 into phase 2 and do it in a responsible way. I think much of what was discussed, the ability to be outside, seems to be less likely. The governor talked about some of those things in transmission that seem to appear less likely with work that's been done on it, studies that have been done. So, I think from that standpoint, he was very clear, indicating that we want to find ways to get people to utilize outdoor space. So whether it's retail or restaurants, and again, we're not. If any retail wants to use it as well, we certainly welcome them to, because they're limited on what they can use for their internal space. So we welcome them to use the sidewalks as well. We think it's a good way to bring back some things on Palafox, and we think it will spin off into other side streets downtown as well. So again, that's kind of the thought process, just trying to help businesses, but do it in a responsible way.
This is also from Andrew. What % of restaurants do you think are likely to reopen inside business today? And same for retail.
I don't know. I mean, I know Cordova Mall is opening. I know I talked with West Payne at Cordova Mall. I know they're opening today at 11. I actually have a dentist appointment at 11. I know dentists are opening back up. The dental community is opening back up today. So I know some of these places are there, but most of them are going to have different protocol. I think, like I said, I'll be interested to find out when I go. I think I probably have to stay in the parking lot, call. They'll text me when I need to come in, wear a mask, come in. They'll take the mask off. They'll do all the stuff, clean my teeth, put it back on, leave. I think same thing will happen with retail and restaurants. However, I think the opportunity for us to be outside, and I think we've seen that in a number of places. I think if we can be outside, in warmer weather like this with the sun and the warmer temperatures, it seems to be it's an opportunity for us to be able to do some things without necessarily increasing risk, but helping economic opportunity.
And I think someone might have forgotten to put their name. This one came in anonymously, but I don't know if it was intentional. It says, understanding that it is a state decision, do you perhaps have any insight from the state level as to why hotels and motels are open, but Airbnb, VRBO, et cetera, are not allowed to do short-term rentals right now?
I have no idea, other than, that certainly was the governor's position on that as to why the limit was happening. I know I talked with County Commissioner Jeff Bergosh last week. I know he intends to bring something, I think, to their meeting Thursday and championing that, and he's going forward with that, and we'll see what happens. I don't think probably this is the only place in the state that we've seen that, but I know there are some things that are that have some champions, and they're moving those things forward. We're certainly we'll support any way we can. So my goal, nobody was really championing personal services, so certainly want to do that. And I understand bowling alleys also have questions and some other things. We're continuing to work on it. I do think, over time, we said not everybody would open May 4th. I think some people will open May 11th. Some more people may open May 18th. Some people may open May 25th. But the whole goal is, as long as we're green, that we continue to do that. I think real quick, I might should say, I know, again, I thought what the governor said was interesting. We are doing significantly more testing. The new testing center that opened is going to do 400 tests a day. You don't have to have a reason. If you just want to show up and drive over to University of West Florida, they'll take you there. They'll give you a test. If you feel for some reason that you think you need a test, go there and get one. So you're going to see testing expand significantly. This means our numbers will go up. I've not seen necessarily numbers translate into hospitalizations. I know there are some concerns about long-term healthcare facilities. That's where my concern is more than with some of the general population, because I think, especially as we see people going and getting tested that don't even have symptoms, they may turn out positive. There may be positives, but that's good for them to figure out in ways for them to either they need to wear a mask or figure some other way to interact properly and keep the spread down. But those aren't people, if they don't even have symptoms necessarily, that are going to create hospitalizations. However, our long-term care facilities, we're continuing to watch and continuing to work through them and make sure that they're doing what they need to do to keep our more vulnerable citizens, I guess, in a good situation. So that's, I think, going to be the bigger challenge, is what happens in these long-term care facilities is going to be a much bigger challenge to me than some of what you're going to see testing going up from just tested other. And I think the testing is great. The more we know, the more, we probably do have a lot of asymptomatic people out there. This would be good for them to learn and figure out whether they had it, and if they have it and test positive, then they need to be wearing a mask and they need to quarantine until that such time as it goes away. So, again, if you feel like you need to, we probably should have said that in the opening. If you feel like you need to get tested, there is testing out there at UWF. You can still test with Sacred Heart and others, but I know you need to call before you go in. With the one at UWF, you can just drive out there and drive through.
And I normally ask these questions in the order they come in, but since these are related, I'm just going to ask both of them because I saw them both, because they're both related to the Palafox closure. Jim was asking, when do you believe a final decision will be made on that? And then Daniel at WKRG said, just for clarification, the Palafox plan is going to happen. You're just working on logistics, and are you working on getting it done by this coming weekend?
I would say we're still efforting. And Casey, you're showing his live. Okay, there we go. I think we're still efforting as to how it looks and how it gets put together. I think it is something we would like to do. We'd like to find a way that we could do something to help businesses downtown and continue to keep the vibrancy that we saw. I think it's one of the things we've really enjoyed in downtown, and certainly the last 2 months have been challenging down here. In fact, you can almost drive downtown and it's like it looks like it did back in the 80s almost for a while. It had nobody was down here. So again, we're trying to bring back some of that vibrancy, but do it in a responsible way. This is not a I repeat, this is not a gallery night. We can't gather, we can't sit there and congregate in certain areas. If you have an opportunity, you want to go to eat, if you want to walk up and see a shop you want to look at, you can do that. But we got to stay focused on moving and then going to the places where you're going to. And I think we see that with restaurants. People ask, why aren't bars open? Because typically at bars and bars within restaurants, I think you also see those spaces being eliminated, just because that's where people typically congregate, different people from different areas. If you go sit down at your table, you're typically with people you've already socialized with or know, even usually within maybe your own family unit. So again, sitting down, I think, is important. Being seated, some of those things. I think the people that are asking from the bar situation, I know they're looking at doing sort of the same measures and asking the state about. And again, that'll be a decision that they look at. But the idea about this is trying to figure out a way we can help businesses, and we are still trying to figure out whether it's going to be feasible. But we think it can work. In fact, we know we have all the stuff to make it work. And the one thing we were sort of lacking was making sure we had police officers. But we've talked with Tommy, Chief Leiter, and we can make that happen. So we can make it happen. The only challenge is how do we implement it, and making sure that we don't disrupt those retailers who utilize the space during the day. So that's why I thought maybe it would be something more practical to use during the weekend. I'm still looking to get back from Lisa D's comments that came out from the solicitation and survey request on there. So as soon as we get those back, we will talk about it. We'll look at it and we'll see what we can be done.
And they both asked about timing, I guess. So do you anticipate that happening this weekend, or when is
our goal is
would do that?
The goal is probably to figure out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday sometime, so that we could try to implement Friday. That's the goal. If we slip past Wednesday and we can't do it, we'll probably have to pass on this weekend and go to the next weekend. But again, we're only looking to do this in the month of May, while we're still mainly in an outdoor focus, for these restaurants and for retail. So as long as we've got an outdoor focus, we're trying to help them generate sales and service opportunities with outdoors.
Right. And this question is from Jim Little. The county is allowing Little League sports groups to come back and use parks and play games after a 2-week practice period. What is the city doing as far as Little League organizations? At
this particular time, I think, as I tried to express, my biggest concern is right now getting businesses back open. There is a time that we will get back with Little League sports, and we will have those. That's our whole goal. Our youth sports program is very important, but at this particular time, it is not as big a priority for us as bringing businesses back at this time. We're going to continue to bring businesses back. I have talked to, and again, assuming that we're all in green, I've talked to both some of our baseball groups and also to Brian Cooper. I'm not opposed to, I think it's that last weekend, I think it is it's May 30th, allowing them to come back and do do team test and do all that stuff that they need to do. If we are still tracking in a green position, allow them to do that and then draft teams and then start from there. But at this particular time, May, the most important thing in May is getting businesses back open, and the risk that is associated with any gathering should be, to me, should be implemented more for us getting our businesses back open. Then when we get that done, we can focus on things like recreation and sports. I certainly am a huge proponent, both as a child and as a parent. I participated in a lot of Pensacola sports programs. So I think they're great. I think they're very important for building a strong body to go along with a strong mind. But I think we've got to look at first, our first priority should be to our businesses, getting them reopened, getting people back to work so that they can put food on the table for their families. Once that happens, we'll start coming back with recreation.
And this is from Jeremy. Has this period of time significantly slowed city projects like Bayview Center or soccer complex, or not so much?
My feeling, my understanding is most of the projects that we already had outstanding, they've been progressing along very well. I know some of the things like Gulf Power, what they were doing on Palafox, they were able to make a fairly, they were able to get through that fairly quickly. We made all the striping on Spring Street to bring all those new parking spaces in. Everything I talked to Derek, what we're working on, we've got a lot of things happening. And the good news is they're also working on a lot of things. Now there are some things that I think could be slowed down in the sense that we had some challenges trying to figure out some things with our soccer fields. But we are moving forward with the road improvements that we need to make, because at some point that's going to happen one way or another. So we are still moving forward with those road improvements. We're going to come back and look and see what we need to do with the fields and getting that all pulled together. But we will pick back up with that as soon as we can, when we feel like we have a good feel for timing and a good feel for our funding. So again, at this particular time, all projects for the most part are moving forward very well, and probably even ahead of schedule. The only thing that isn't is not the improvements to Langley are moving forward, and they will be happening on time. The soccer fields are a little bit behind, but that's a different issue, and we're working through that.
And this is also from Jeremy. What are the thresholds to begin to reopen city services like community centers, meetings, etc.?
I think if we move into phase 2 and everything is green, I think by June we'll be there. I think we'll probably come back with all of our meetings that are different committees. When we'll have them meet, we'll probably still meet as a council. This month we'll only have one meeting. We'll probably still do that with technology and virtually. And then probably in June, we'll come back and I haven't discussed that with Jewel, but I imagine that's probably what we'll try to do. And we're looking to do the same thing with all our other committees, come back in June, assuming we get to phase 2 and we don't have some kind of an upset from the virus. But if we don't have anything uptick from the virus, I think June would be times where we'd start coming out with that.
And this is from John Singley. Do you believe Triumph Gulf Coast could be a source of funds to help small businesses recover? Economic recovery is authorized in the Triumph legislation.
It depends on what happens with Triumph. I don't know. That'll be up to what they decide. I do know that we at the City of Pensacola are working on some of the infrastructure projects we have ready to go. We believe that the right time to move will be as we're coming out of this. To move into recovery, it'll be the right time for us to put some projects out there. We're short a little bit on the hashtag Bruce Beach. So from our standpoint, it would be good to partner with Triumph for some additional dollars. We'll certainly work that. As far as what Triumph does with individual businesses, I don't know what they will end up doing. If they'll issue some type of micro grants or something like that. That would really be, you'd have to talk with them about that directly.
And this is from Jim. He just wanted to follow up on Palafox. Is there resistance to this idea from Palafox business owners? And if so, what is the objection to the idea?
I think some of the retailers are resistant. And I think my issue has been simply to ask them, I get it. And I know that in a traditional pre-COVID market, that having the access on the street was important for their businesses, and they felt that was important, and they saw changes happen in their business. My only concern that I think they're somewhat not anticipating is I don't believe pre-COVID buying will be the same way as post-COVID buying, and I think the vibrancy of certainly what we've seen downtown has not been the same. Now, the good news is, I mean, to an extent, some of the things that bounce back at the beach, I imagine places like downtown will eventually start to bounce back because there's because of what we can provide. Again, as I said before, you can buy a lot of stuff online. You can shop for most anything online, as we all found out over the last 6-8 weeks. But there is sort of an experience that happens in going shopping, and I think some people are still going to be looking for that, and I think it works. My only issue is to some of those retailers, I don't know that the market will move as it did beforehand, and I think having the exposure, I think, can introduce you to a whole new set of potential customers and clients. So, you know, I think they have some reservations of how it has worked in the past, but I think, you know, I know the strong towns. I know Quint Studer did an interview the other day on strong towns where he said communities that experiment and look at things and try to figure out different stuff to help move their community forward will probably recover faster than those that don't do anything and just say, hey, we're just going to go, you know, status quo. That's the fastest way to figure, you know, things change. The market is changing underneath you. We probably need to change some things that we're doing. We don't see this as a long-term position, but we do think in the short term, this could help some of those, both the retailers and the restaurants downtown, not just on Palafox, but bringing a market to downtown in the sense that people are down there helps everybody. And, you know, sort of the rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what we're trying to do.
And real quick, I just want to say I haven't seen anything from Dave Dunwoody yet. So Dave or anyone else, if I haven't gotten to your question or you feel like it's getting ignored, you can send me an email or text if for some reason there's an issue with the Q&A function. But the next question is from John Singley. He said, is there any information about possible antibody testing?
I mean, that's going to be coming from the state and the feds. We do expect to have some. I think it's still, they're working on the viability of a test and the ability to make the test, I guess, large markets. So I think as those things are as that becomes scalable in a community like ours, you know, I think we'll see it begin to happen. But I think one of the things that I think the governor is looking at is the testing center. While we don't necessarily have antibody there, at least realizing that there are probably a lot of asymptomatic people there that and they weren't able to, under the prior protocols, to be able to get a test. Now they can go out to UWF. So, you know, I think this was strategically placed. People ask, why was it UWF? Well, part of it is UWF is because it's sort of a shared service between Escambia and Santa Rosa, and it's really open to anyone in Northwest Florida. You do have to be a Florida resident. But again, those individuals from Crestview, from Okaloosa County, can certainly come over as well. So the desire was to put it in a location that was close to going eastward. So I think that's what that does on Highway 90 there at the university. But again, this should allow us to see more individuals being tested, allow us to find some of those individuals who probably have the virus or asymptomatic, don't know they have the virus, and it will probably show, again, our numbers will go up, but it will also show that, again, if those people eventually have the ability to be immune, it's a lot better for us. I mean, I've heard a number of things in places like New York City. There's estimates that it could be as high as 25% of the people had exposure to it, even though the numbers that showed up were not nearly that high. But again, you know, the same kind of thing could happen. We could be having many more people that are impacted by this in our community in Northwest Florida. Whether at this particular time, again, getting the test done for those individuals. I mean, if they had it and we never get tested, it doesn't, that does us no good. So knowing it at least, confirms for a few things, but it may mean we see some things go up as far as our testing percentage and number of positives. So at this point, we'll see where we go. The bigger thing that we're watching is hospitalizations and impacts on impacts on our first responders. If we can watch out for those two things, then I think we can still move forward and get new services open.
Great. And this is from Jim Little. On the Recover Pensacola plan, is the city going to start a daily status update if the numbers are green, yellow, or red, and the numbers that we're using to make that determination?
We intend to do something, and we're going to work through it. We obviously will only be representing city numbers, not county numbers. So it's a little bit hard to figure out. It's just like, you know, we will have city data that we can actually work on. Of course, a lot of the data that's collected zip code wise is not city, which is why it shows Pensacola has a significant number, but not all those places are in the city limits. In fact, 32514 was the #1 zip code with contamination, with people that had the virus, yet none of that zip code, while it says Pensacola, is necessarily in the city limits of Pensacola. So again, we're working through a couple of those things, how we can do it, but it is our plan to do that and look at city services. You know, I think it would have been stronger if we'd had it from a county level, but we're gonna go ahead and look at it from a city standpoint and try to continue to look at those, look at hospitalizations and also our first responders. At this particular time, we are in a green from, I know, our first responders from city and fire and city police, and we will also be working with Janice. She said she would update us on EMS. So that's kind of what we'll continue to do.
This is from John Singley. Do you have an estimate when craft breweries with outdoor seating and food trucks but no food license will be able to open?
John, I don't. And I know this has been one of the challenges. I've talked to a couple of them that said, you know, what's the difference? And I think for them it would be establishing and working with both Department of Business and Professional Regulation, as well as other parts of the state, because I think at the end of the day, I know I've talked to a couple of them. I think again, if you are seated and you go to a place and you're seated and you're just not up congregated, standing around together, I think that makes it very much more similar to a restaurant and probably more workable that something could happen like that, especially also if it's all outdoors. You know, again, the governor was very clear about trying to do things outdoors, stay away from things indoors, recirculated air. We'll see what happens as we move forward with that. But I mean, I think if there's a protocol determined, it is likely that it could happen. I think there's some good arguments that they could be very much like restaurants, but they're going to have to do it in a way that has people sit down at tables and stays there and serves them there. I think if they do that, there may be the ability to create some kind of a protocol with the state and have that happen. But it's going to be a state decision, not a city decision.
I don't see any new questions. I'll give it about 30 to 45 seconds because there is a bit of a delay. So just hang tight, or if you have any closing comments while we wait.
No, I think, again, we'll know sort of where we are by the middle of the week if we're able to do anything on Palafox. Our whole goal is to look for things that we can do that begin to create some vibrancy back here. I know there's some individuals, we've been talking with some people that wanted to do drive-in theater on a smaller scale here in the downtown area. So we're certainly working at that. We've also been kicking around with with the Wahoos about doing a May 30th fireworks show. They have a number of fireworks that they were going to do. Obviously, trying to work through some of that, and we may be able to do one that trying to keep people in their cars or at least on their car and properly spaced event outdoors. So we're looking at some things that would create vibrancy in our community and give people things to do, but do it in a way that doesn't, again, is prudent and doesn't threaten community health. So kind of those are things we're looking at. We'll continue to look at them. I think we want to be an experimental community and try to see, and hey, if these things don't work, if we do something, if we do figure out what we can do and we do it this weekend and no restaurants want to do it, then we'll pull back next week and we won't do it. We're just simply trying to offer suggestions, and what we've talked to some of them and heard from them, that may be a way to get some opportunity for businesses. So we'll continue to look, and we'll strive in that area. We want to help our small businesses, in the city of Pensacola, whatever we can do to help them.
We do have another question that came in from John Singley. Any updates from Southern Oaks Assisted Living Facility?
Not at this particular time. I have not heard anything from them other than, I think the hospitals and the state we're supposed to be working with them on better protocols and getting PPE for their people. I do have a teleconference today at 2:00 with the hospitals. So hopefully we'll know a little bit more about how the plan is going there at Southern Oaks and our other long-term care facilities. I think those are the more critical place that we're focusing at this time.
All right, and I don't see any other new questions, so I think we're good to go.
All right, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you later this week. Thank you.